What's up everybody, it's Technicians Tuesday, and today we are going to begin the process of pulling the fuel tank out of the Ocean Master project boat. If you are new to the channel and don't know about the project boat yet, I'll put a link to the video introducing this boat at the end of the video. But for right now, let's start pulling on this fuel tank. The first thing we need to do is get rid of the leaning post. We'll clean out all the trash to make it lighter, and then we can remove the 4 mounting screws from each leg. Once the screws are out, we'll just pick it up and stick it in the bow of the boat out of the way. With that out of the way, we'll pull out all the screws holding the deck down, and for this boat, we'll have to see how it goes here in the back of the panel, where whoever did this Mickey Mouse transom deal fiberglassed the deck access to the rest of the floor. We might end up taking out this access panel, but we'll see when we get there. Once we get the screws out, the next thing we want to do is remove the caulking here in the floor. It's best to start out with a brand new razor blade to start this process, and we want to hold the knife on a slight angle, making a cut on each side of the sealant. Then we can pull the sealant out in larger sections to help allow us to pull out the deck. Now this is the sketchy part of pulling access panels out like this. A lot of times they are put down with 5200 and can be a real pain to get up. This panel here is pretty soft, so we can't pick it up from the access port. We'll need to find a weaker spot around the side of it to get a pry bar in there to get the side of it started. Most likely we'll crack a piece of the fiberglass while doing this, but that's just part of the process and we'll have to fix that later. If anyone has a better way, we'd love to know about it in the comment section below. It's also important that we use a pry bar and not a screwdriver, because usually the tips just break off, and believe me, our Snap-on rep loves it when I bring him screwdrivers like this. He usually asks me if I'd like to buy a pry bar set, and I tell him no thank you, this works great and has a lifetime warranty. He's good to me though and doesn't make me pay for every one of them. Plus, as you can see, I already have the pry bar set, and we'll work one of the pry bars in until we get one of the sides to come up just a little bit. By keeping pressure on the panel, the 5200 will slowly let go and allow the panel to come up a little bit. Just keep holding the pressure, and then we'll use something to get some leverage on the bar and work our way around the panel until it begins to pop up. Continue around the panel, keeping leverage on it until we've got both sides up, and we can pull the whole panel off, and we can stick it somewhere out of the way so that we can begin the next step. Now it's important to look at the situation of the deck here, because we might run into a problem pulling the tank out if there is too much tank stuffed under the console. Like this tank here, we have 28 inches of the tank still under the floor, including the fill and vent ports, which will most likely turn into a real problem. We'll get the hose clamps off of the fill and vent hoses, and then since we will be replacing these hoses, and you could spend an hour or so trying to get them off, we'll just cut a slit in the hose and then work the hose off of the port. Now our next step is a dirty job, but a crucial step in getting this tank out. We want to get all of this water off of the foam, and then we are going to take one of the pry bars and begin to pull out all of the foam from the back of the tank here. We need to get all of the foam out in order to try and pull the tank back and then out without having to cut the deck in the front. We will just continue pulling out the foam until we get down to the hull inside of the gas tank compartment. With all of the foam out, we can see how bad this tank is, and then once we have it cleaned out, we'll want to take out the fuel sender so we can pull the tank from there. These tabs here usually rip off when they are pulled on, so I'll show you how we can pull on the tank without using the tab. Before pulling on the tank though, we want to take a sawzall with the longest demolition blade you have on it and run down the sides of the tank, cutting the foam to get some space on the sides and relieve some of the suction that the foam has on the tank. Then we'll pull the sender. We are going to use an engine mounting bolt with some washers on it and then a shackle and chain to pull on the tank. We'll put the mounting bolt onto the shackle and then stick it into the center hole, then center the mounting bolt so we can pull the tank out. Now if you don't have a forklift, you'll have to build a frame and a come-along system to pull the tank out. Luckily we've got a forklift, so that's what we will secure the chain to. With someone operating the lift, we'll carefully hold the bolt centered in the tank and get some tension on the chain, and then stand back in case the chain breaks. For us, part of the chain broke, so we'll reset the chain and then try again. Once we get the tension back on the tank, we'll pull up on the tank until it lifts the boat off the rack just a little bit, and we'll try and get the tank to begin coming out. With a little teeter-tottering, our tank begins to come up, but we ended up having to cut some of the fiberglass tab that the deck rests on because it was put on after the tank was installed and the opening in the deck was a little smaller than the tank. After a lot of cutting and rocking and dealing with the rain, we finally get the tank to come up, but it will not come back and eventually is wedged up to the deck. We tried to use the big forklift and pull the tank back, but it wouldn't budge at all and was beginning to pull the boat off the rack, which basically means that we have to cut the deck, but then the tank will come right out. So we'll cut along this line here until we are under the console and we can pull this whole section out. Which also means that the console has to come out, so all of this has to get de-rigged and pulled out. Except for the toilet. I think we'll leave that hooked up. That's actually like a serious feature. You see, it's still basically being bucket trained, but in a classy way, you know? No, I'm just kidding. This is definitely going away. Anyway, with the tank up this far, we can see how bad it is, and we can scrape off some of this gunk and see where there are some spots where the tank is leaking. I'm sure the bottom of the tank is way worse, but you'll have to wait to see because that's going to be all for this week's Technicians Tuesday. I want to thank you for hanging out with us today, and if this is your first time with us here, get subscribed to the channel so you don't miss out on next week's video where we will be de-rigging the console and pulling the entire center console out of the boat. Then you don't want to miss out on the rest of this restoration process. Don't forget to hit that like button and then visit us on our website at bornagainboating.com where we have even more helpful articles for all of your boating and outboard projects. Thanks again for hanging out. Enjoy your Tuesday night and we'll see you next week.